Alright, so this is kind of shocking because there was a new economic model that was just released which says that young people should stop saving for retirement. And this is crazy because it goes against everything I've ever learned in personal finance, which first says to, as early as possible, max out your employer contribution match inside of your 401k, then go to your Roth IRA and max it out, then go back to your 401k and max that out, and if there's any money left, go to an HSA, max it out, and if there's still money left over, then make yourself a taxable brokerage account and then invest in there. But this model goes against all of it. And instead it says that people in their 30s might actually benefit from selling off their 401k, paying the penalty fees and taxes, and then using that money to improve their standard of living. And that just gave Dave Ramsey a heart attack. Part of this video is sponsored by Rocket Money, but more about them later. But this has caused a huge debate in the finance community, with some people agreeing with this new model and other people saying that it was an absolutely horrible take and really bad advice. And because I'm a personal finance channel, I felt like I had to make a reaction video and help explain exactly what it is and what it means. Now, the reason this is so important right now though is because they found that more than half of our younger population today have stopped saving for retirement. Fidelity asked 2,600 people, and roughly 55% of those polled, both Gen Z and millennials between the ages of 18 to 35, said that they stopped saving for retirement since the start of the pandemic. And roughly 45% of those people polled said they wouldn't start saving again until things, quote, returned back to normal. But the problem with that thinking is it's really hard to pinpoint when things were normal throughout US history, especially nowadays, with inflation being as high as it is. It's out of control, with interest rates and mortgage rates hitting all-time highs, with student loan debt and credit card debt hitting all-time highs, with rental rates still being extremely high, and the US reaching a new record because the national debt just reached $31 trillion for the first time in US history. So for all those reasons, younger people have chosen to focus more on living for today rather than saving for tomorrow. Personally, I would argue that those reasons are exactly why now is more important than ever to start saving and taking advantage of those tax-efficient accounts. But this theory says that it's okay to wait because you can make it up later. So let me explain exactly what it's talking about. Let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andrei Jikh. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the new economic film theory. So first, the biggest question is, why would an economist tell people that saving is not that important when you're young? Now here's why. I've never heard of this concept before making this video, but it's because of something called the LCH, the life cycle hypothesis. And what this is it's a theory that was developed in the 1950s that's used to describe how people like to spend and save their money throughout the different phases of their lives. And what this theory does is it assumes that all of us plan on saving based on keeping the same standard of living throughout those different phases. Now, they specifically choose to focus on this graph, which shows younger people tend to spend more money since they make less money. People in the middle focus on spending less and saving more to catch up because that's when they make the most money. And older people tend to spend more money to maintain their lifestyle since they don't have a job. Now, all of this is assuming that in each and every one of those phases, the goal is to smooth out any kind of changes to your lifestyle while maximizing your happiness, because it argues the whole point of saving for retirement is to live the same kind of lifestyle while you are working as the one you want to live when you're not working. And it argues that this theory actually works for both high-income earners and low-income earners. For high-income earners, for example, it says it's perfectly normal not to save a ton of money in your 20s because you won't be making a lot of money in your 20s, therefore you'll have to spend more to enjoy the same level of lifestyle and to maximize your happiness level. That's because $1,000 will mean a lot more to you when you're making $25K a year in your 20s than it will when you're 35 and you're making substantially more, which is when you can save more to make up the difference. Now, it argues the same is true for low-income earners, but for a different reason. And that reason is because Social Security will supplement most of that income, which means you need to save less to make up for it. Now, to back this up, they show this data from 2011, which shows that Social Security replaced the income for roughly 84% of the lowest income earners, and only only 16% of the highest income earners. This message was brought to you by the US government. No, I'm just kidding, but this theory gets really interesting when it addresses saving to invest for retirement. This is where it gets a lot more controversial, but first a quick word from today's sponsor. Now, personally, I believe that saving and investing across all phases of your life is extremely important, and part of saving has to do with building a good habit, and building a good habit means tracking your bills and recurring expenses. That's why I've been using an app called Rocket Money. It's an easy-to-use, all-in-one finance platform that helps you save more and spend less. Now, there are 3 specific features of this app that I love most. Number 1, Rocket Money cancels unwanted subscriptions. Did you know that roughly 84% of people have a subscription they forgot about? That means you're probably one of them. Rocket Money safely and securely identifies those recurring charges, and it cancels those unwanted subscriptions for you with just a tap. That means you don't have to get on the phone to try to hunt down the cancel button. Rocket Money does all the hard work for you. And number 2, just by uploading a photo and tapping a button, Rocket Money can negotiate your bills for you, from internet service bills to cable and phone bills, which is also why the average Rocket Money member saves roughly $720 a year, or up to 20% off their bills. Now, in some cases, they may even issue a refund for subscriptions that were renewed without your consent. The app pays for itself. And number 3, Rocket Money gives you a clear picture of your net worth, including your cash, debts, investments, crypto, retirement accounts, and collectible items, and shows how your net worth is trending over time. Rocket Money is trusted by 3.4 million members and counting, and you can try the app for free and unlock more features with premium. All you have to do is click the link in the description below this video to start saving as early as possible. Thank you, Rocket Money, for sponsoring this portion of the video. Now let's get back to it. All right, so here's what this theory says about saving to invest. It gives a couple conditions that have to be true for this model. And the first condition is that real interest rates will stay at or near zero like they were for the last decade. Now, the second condition for this model is risk-free investing only. That means the stock market isn't really included in this scenario. It's only about safe investing, which means bonds, treasury bonds, and pretty much cash. Now, the third condition for this model to work is that the real risk-adjusted returns for those assets will have to be zero when compared to things like inflation. Given those assumptions, the life cycle hypothesis means you have to believe that people will only want to save money when they're relatively rich in order to spend money when they're relatively poor. And this is exactly where the internet had a problem with this model, because we do live in the real world and the stock market does exist, and that's why investors are encouraged to take more risk in the market, because over the last 100 plus years, the stock market has averaged 6.6%, and that's factoring inflation. So you can't just save money and stuff your mattress with it, you also have to take a risk and invest it. But if you were to only save it, one of the most basic principles of saving money is to do it inside of your 401k and at least max out your employer's match. Because for every dollar you put in, your employer will have to put in that same dollar 100% up to a certain point, but that's still basically free money. But this theory argues that people who were automatically enrolled in a 401k plan are what's called a passive saver, and that's not the best strategy for them because of what are called welfare costs. And here's an example of that. Let's say we have 2 restaurants. You want to go to this one, which is more expensive, so instead you go to this one, which is cheaper. Technically, that's an example of a welfare loss because you made a suboptimal decision to your lifestyle. And upon realizing you could be living a better life if you weren't forced to save, people sell their 401ks, they pay their taxes and penalty fees, and instead they choose to spend the money for a more optimal lifestyle. The author argues that passive savers are not building a habit of saving money because they were forced to save. Therefore, most people won't choose to start saving for retirement until a later phase in life and the age of roughly 35, when they start making more and they can catch up without a change to their lifestyle. So that's what this is. Now let me give you my personal thoughts. Now, luckily, I'm pretty sure this was just a study of a theoretical economic model and not a study of actual people living actual lives, but either way, here's what I think it gets right and what I think it gets wrong, starting with the right. Number 1, I 100% agree that the money you spend in your 20s will be way more meaningful than the money you'll save in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. Because in your 20s, that's when you're at the healthiest point in your life. That's when you get to have experiences that will change your life and shape your habits forever. It's also true that you have to spend more money sometimes in your 20s to make more money in your 30s. Like, for example, buying a car and financing it with hopefully lower interest rates like this model assumes, because those costs will be offset way faster and much easier in your 30s with that higher income. Now, it could also be true that saving in your 20s could be counterintuitive, especially if you become a high income earner in your 30s, and it could not make much of a difference in the long term. And because we can't take our money with us in the afterlife, personally, I would gladly give up all the money I saved in my 20s, which was $100,000 by the age of 25, but because I invested it, it reached roughly $200,000. So right now, I would gladly give that up just to have my 20s be less stressful. But that is only if I knew then what I know now, which is obviously not how life works. With that said though, I disagree with this model a lot more than I agree with it. The biggest problem I have with this theory is that it equates spending money with optimal happiness, and it doesn't have to be that way. Sure, spend the money in your 20s to travel to Bali, buy iced coffees and avocado toast, but you can find other ways to be happy that doesn't mean spending all your money. Another problem is that this theory assumes everyone wants to maintain their standard of living, and that's not true for everyone. Some people, like the FIRE community, aspires to save as much as possible as early as possible because it gives them more choices in life much earlier in life. For me, for example, I saved roughly 50% of my income in my 20s, and I could do that in my 30s much faster what it took me a decade to do, but it's the fact that I saved money in my 20s that allowed me to make a more optimal path in life, because having those additional assets gave me the confidence to make a change in my career, which is not something that I might have done in my 30s if I didn't have any savings at all. And saving early on taught me how to be happy with less and to not equate my spending to my happiness, and that is a lesson that is way easier to learn when you're younger than it is when you are older. Another problem I have with this hypothesis is that it doesn't seem to take into account gaps in employment, which is exactly when you want to have some savings because it gives you options, especially times like these when there are hiring freezes and more layoffs coming. And another problem I have with this theory is that it assumes everyone wants to retire at traditional age of 67. And hopefully, if you actually watch my videos and you've subscribed by going to my profile and clicking subscribe, because YouTube just got rid of the subscribe button on the videos, which is crazy, hopefully your goal is to maybe retire a little bit earlier than everyone else. Now, either way, I know this theory is more about saving rather than investing, but this is gonna blow your mind. Check this out. This is how much of a difference an early saving habit will make you in the long term. Let's say at the age of 18, you were able to get a job that paid you $35,000 per year. Nowadays, that is not super hard to do. And with that income, you were able to save 15% of your yearly income, which is about $437.50 per month. Now, with that money, you would buy this one stock every single month, VTI. This represents the broad stock market. Now, this stock is supposed to average roughly 9% per year over the long term, not factoring inflation. Now, let's say you were to do this for the next 49 years. The reason 49 is because 49 plus 18 equals 67. 67 is the age of retirement. So you did this consistently each and every single month. The calculation shows that after 49 years of doing this, you would end up with a super juicy portfolio of $3.9 million. Now, let's instead assume that you waited to save for retirement until you turned roughly 35. That's exactly what this model says is when most people start saving. But the catch is that you got a job that paid literally twice as much, $70,000 per year, and you also saved 15% of that income and started investing. That's roughly $10,500 every single year, twice as much. But because you started at 35, you now have 32 years of compound interest, not 49. The calculation shows that after 32 years of doing this, your portfolio would end up being roughly $1.7 million. Now, that is still a lot of money, but that is still more than $2 million less. Now, I'm not saying that having $2 million more in retirement and sacrificing your 20s to do it is the better choice. That'll be different from person to person. person. The point I'm trying to make is just to show how big of a difference time will make if you can start saving early and then investing for retirement. Another thing I disagree with is this assumption that everyone will make more money when they're older. That's just not true for everyone. Not every job will have a growth trajectory that will take them from 35K to 70K a year. That would be nice if that were true, but carelessly spending money in your 20s because of that assumption sets a bad precedent, bad habits, and it's a little too YOLO for me. Another thing I disagree with is that Social Security will be there for everyone to replace their income. That would be nice, again, if that were true. But it seems like with this depleting funds, with the cost of living going up, that's becoming less and less true each and every single day. The point is, this theory does make some sense, but only if you look at your life in hindsight and you say, I wish I kind of spent more money now that I know I'm making more. But the reality is, life is a lot more complicated, it's a lot more nuanced, it actually has ups and downs, so you always have to be prepared, which is why for me it makes more sense to start saving early just to give yourself the option and the freedom. That seems to be the most optimal choice for me anyway. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts on whether you think it's better to start saving early or start saving later. In the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your day. Smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to pick up your free stocks, links are down below, and then go track them automatically with the spreadsheet link down below in my Patreon. Love you, thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you back here on Monday and Friday, sometimes Wednesday. I'll see you soon, bye-bye.